This is Sick and Wrong, America's #1 source for antisocial commentary, brought to you by the Reach Around Foundation.
Welcome to podcast number 5, Sick and Wrong. This is your host, D. Simon.
I'm Lance Wackerly. Hello, everyone.
Feels so good to be back. It's been about a week, but so much has happened in the news, and so many sick events have happened. And it's good that we're here to bring these to light for you, the listening audience. And once again, I'd like to thank everyone for sending us some emails. We have some emails to discuss towards the end of the show, though. But once again, that's sickandwrongpodcast@hotmail.com. And check out the website. Lance has been updating it. It looks cool. There's like blinking stuff now and like a retard that moves his hands or something.
I'm a nerd.
Yeah, well, at least one of us knows how to do that type of shit.
I've been adjusting the web nodules and extensions to make it more pleasurable for the listeners.
Is that your Bill Gates impression?
Yeah, actually it is.
It sounds pretty close. But anyways, I'd like to also thank the Reach Around Foundation for bringing to everyone another fine Sick and Wrong show.
So we do have to thank them, whenever we can.
Definitely. So Lance, you mentioned this to me earlier, and I'm actually think this is something that we need to discuss. It just kind of surprises me, and I think it's a long time coming. So they finally busted Canada's worst serial killer.
Those smug Canadians.
Those smug, polite, benign, neutral Canadians, finally, they have a killer.
Yeah, well,
we're talking about.
They call themselves, Americans except without the guns, or they call us Canadians but with guns. They're just so smug about their non-violent, blah, blah, annoying culture up there.
That's what's great about that new conservative president that, wrested power in Canada. You heard about that?
Yeah, I did.
I think that's great.
But let's get into this one.
A little taste of our medicine
This is a story that I think, we as a society are at the beginning stages of hearing about the story, and I'm hoping throughout the other podcasts after this, maybe we can come back with updates. But because this story is definitely just beginning. Canada has just put on trial officially. I guess it's largest. What do you call it? Most prolific serial killer that it's ever had?
What is the proper term? I would say just the most successful
hardest
serial
working.
Killer. Yeah, the hardest working serial killer. This guy put in overtime, though.
He's the James Brown of serial killing. This is the biggest serial killer that Canada's ever had. His name is Robert.
His stats are great.
Well, yeah, alleged. Serial killer.
Stats, yeah, okay.
Like that always happens. Whenever somebody's alleged, they actually are.
Yeah, he hasn't formally been charged yet.
Yeah.
No, he's been charged, but he hasn't been tried.
Here. I'll give it the whole background. Robert William Pickton faced 15 murder charges in Vancouver's missing women case.
Vancouver.
In 2002, 15. In May 2005, Canadian attorneys added 12 more first-degree murder charges against Pickton, bringing the grim total to 27.
27 murder charges.
However, reading further on the story,
I'd love to be that guy's lawyer.
So after this May 2005, they added 12. He's up to 27, and they went into an in-depth preliminary to the hearing, investigation. So now Pickton's trial didn't start until late January 2006. Just happened. So now they think they have all the evidence they can get.
So right now they're charging him though with 27 murders.
They're charging him with 27, but then here's sort of the background on the case. Rebecca Guno, Guno, a drug addict and prostitute. He's one of those. He's trying to cleanse society. It's sort of a typical.
But
MO.
also he's one of those guys that preys on the easiest, the most vulnerable people, because he's not going after housewives here, breaking into people's houses.
Right. Yeah.
Just getting a hooker off the street.
But I think it's a double-edged thing. They're easier because they're just drug addicts and they're on the street. But then these guys feel like they're actually doing good. Getting these horrible people.
Probably because it's like cathartic for him because he feels like he's the angel of death, like the street cleaner.
And there's a sexual they're out there dressed like whores.
Yeah, he's probably into it.
But anyways, so her name was actually the first of 61 prostitutes and just general drug addicted down and out women that would eventually be placed on the list of women to disappear mysteriously from the drug infested area over the 2 decades that followed. This is a drug infested area of Vancouver. So there's actually 61 missing whores and drug addicts or drug addicts. So, they're charging him with 27, but there's actually 61
missing people that could be linked to this case. So this guy, so that's 61 not including the 27, or is the 27 part of the 61?
Part of the 61.
So that's 61 murders. Jesus, dude.
Hardest working man in Canada.
What about our hardest working serial killer? Like our most successful serial killer?
I'm going to have to do some research. Maybe next week I'll come back with that.
I was trying to figure that out. I was looking through some books I have, and the only one I could come up with was the Green River serial killer.
Do you know what the number was for that?
I'm not quite sure what the number was on that, but I know the guy must have killed at least 40 women. Because didn't they find all these, these bodies?
Yeah.
In that farmhouse. This was up in, like, Oregon or something.
Oregon, Washington. I think he moved around a little bit.
But he was like a truck driver. He just killed up and down the coast.
Right.
The Northwest coast. But they never managed to pinpoint exactly how many murders he committed.
So the 41 number, is that what he was convicted of, or that's what they thought?
No, I think they only convicted him of like 8.
So this guy's up to 61.
I know.
He's implicated.
Once again, Canada.
So why aren't they saying that this is the biggest serial killer in North America? Does Mexico have some like superstar we don't know about, or what? Like 150 people that he killed? Maybe I don't know.
I bet you Mexico has their fair share. But no, you know what's funny about this article is Canada has a lot of white people. There's so many white people up there that there's some sick and twisted motherfucker who's killing people, just keeping it. Living his life normally like a normal, yuck, Canadian, happy guy, happy-go-lucky.
Eating
Canadian
beer.
bacon, drinking beer, watching hockey,
right.
Listening to Rush. But meanwhile, he's got some dark, deep, hidden secrets.
Right.
And
there's not a whole lot of information out here about this guy because it's the beginning of the trial.
They don't say how he was busted or where they found the bodies or anything?
Well, they're making a conscientious effort to keep that information under wraps because they don't want it to, affect
sway the jury
potential
or whatever.
Jurors. But so here's all that's out there. 53-year-old guy owns a pig farm out in the country. That's where they excavated a bunch of these bodies. These guys always have like
Why didn't the guy just feed them to the pigs?
That's a good point. I've learned that from Deadwood, that you just feed the bodies to the pigs and nobody ever finds anything.
It was like in that one Silence of the Lambs movie. What was it, Hannibal? They were feeding all the bodies to the pigs.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just a great way to, get rid of a corpse.
I'm wondering if
it's the best way to dispose of a corpse.
I'm wondering if he's just one of those rich guys who just bought the pig farm and got rid of all the pigs. Because he's going to be burying a lot of prostitutes there. He doesn't really want the livestock. He just wants to live there.
He just wants a farm so he could bury the prostitutes.
So they found a bunch of bodies on the pig farm that he owns. This guy, he did it. It's so obvious. But and then so they found something in the pig farm house that also led them to a nearby swamp, marsh area where they dug up a bunch more
what
bodies.
Was it, like an arrow pointing to the swamp?
I don't know.
Just this flashing
arrow.
But
if you ever
check the swamp.
If you ever meet some guy or at somebody's house and they live on a pig, any kind of livestock farm that's defunct, and there's a swamp nearby, that's just a bad sign.
Yeah, no, this guy is so obviously guilty. I don't really see them having much, the prosecution having much difficulty, bringing this case against him. But the one thing that I find disquieting and disturbing, really, is that Canada has a more prolific serial killer than us. We kill so many people every year?
Well, our gross numbers are way up. They just have this one superstar. Yeah, our gross numbers of murders are way above theirs.
Americans, seriously. I know there's probably some closet serial killers out there who maybe haven't killed yet, but 61 in Canada. I know we can beat it.
Well, he's like the Wayne Gretzky of serial killers. We could never top Wayne Gretzky, could we?
No, I guess
he's the great one.
But it just pisses me off.
This is the great one of murder.
It just pisses me off that they have, a better hockey player than us, a better serial killer than us. Honestly, I'm going to do some research by the next show and figure out if we have a better serial, a serial killer who's killed more murders.
I thought you were going to say that you were going to do some serial killing before the next show.
Yeah, try to get 62 in a week.
I was going to stop coming over for the podcast.
No, but anyways, I don't know. It's just it's very interesting to me that they have a serial killer who is more successful than ours.
That's all I really want to say about it also, but hopefully we'll have updates, as details come out. I'm definitely going to follow the story.
Yeah, people, if you know anything about it, send us an email, sickandwrongpodcast@hotmail.com. Well, I say we move on with the show here and let the game begin. As you know, Sick and Wrong, I'll just rehash real quick. That Sick and Wrong, what we do here, it is America's #1 source for antisocial commentary. But not only do we comment on various disturbing news items of the week, Lance and I go head-to-head. He picks his most disturbing, unsettling news item. I pick mine. And the winner gets a case of beer.
MGD.
And, yeah, MGD. Case of MGD a week. That's what's writing on here. So we invite you to listen to the podcast. Send us an email as to which article you prefer, or you know, which article made you puke. And that would be the winner.
The current score is 2-2, and we're in the 5th round.
You know, I find it difficult to keep score. But who goes first this time? Are you going to go first, or should I?
That I don't remember either, so why don't you go?
All right. Well, I kind of have a two-parter here. The only reason that they're two parts, not because I'm trying to get two articles to your one article. The fact of the matter
Whatever,
is,
cheater.
The fact of the matter is both these articles are semi-related because they both kind of involve the same type of crime, so to speak. So anyways, it all starts out in Modesto. And this article is like completely current. It actually just happened today.
Is Modesto's the Central Valley of California, right? There's a lot of those people who drive like 3 hours to work every day to work in the Bay Area or Silicon Valley. They live in Modesto.
They drive Fresno, Modesto. Yeah, Modesto is pretty much like mid-California, like in the Central Valley.
I might not know what the fuck I'm talking about.
I think it's about what? Like, is it a 3-hour drive from Oakland, San
Probably.
Francisco?
Maybe more.
But anyways, I guess this happened on October 7th, but the woman was charged today. Modesto police said that Kelly Pratt wanted her feeble 65-year-old husband to have sex with her the night of October 7th.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, I know. Feeble 65-year-old man.
Get in line, honey.
She's like, I want sex now. Well, when Arthur Pratt refused, and if you saw this picture of Kelly Pratt, you probably would have refused too. Police said 45-year-old Kelly Pratt jumped on him, held him down, bit him repeatedly during a savage attack where she was making animal noises, and ultimately killed him.
Was she having sex with him at the same time?
No.
Or just biting?
She just bit him. I mean, she pulled a complete Marv Albert. I mean, Jesus Christ, dude.
She went feral.
She went completely feral. I mean, this guy's 65 years old. There's a 20-year age difference.
Wait, how old is she?
She's 45.
Okay.
I mean, it's kind of why you don't marry a girl that 20 years younger, unless you can afford bodyguards. Like Hugh Hefner has bodyguards in case, one of those bitches freak out.
Well, plus he's figured out that, you pit them all against each other, and it ends up a big cat fight instead of turning on you.
Yeah, because he could, I bet you that his bodyguards are probably like those chicks in the Austin Powers movies.
Awesome.
A bunch of chicks that have, guns in their tits. But anyways, Arthur's skin was riddled with more than 20 deep tooth marks. So she was, biting chunks of flesh. He died this Sunday at Doctors Memorial Center in Modesto. 6 days after the attack.
I wonder what old guy tastes like.
I don't know.
Probably depends on his diet.
I don't know. I guess Sergeant Al Carter believes that the case will be ruled a homicide and that the bites are most likely the cause of death. He was able to dial 911 that night, and this is one of my other favorite parts. They have a tape recording of him screaming while she was biting him. Could you imagine? Could you imagine listening to that if you're like that 911 operator? She's biting me! God damn it! I would just love to hear that tape.
But I mean, I've watched. Can I interject? I've watched a lot of Cops, and just every day on Cops, there's on the TV show Cops. There's 3 different stories of men just beating their wives mercilessly, and this guy showed a lot of restraint, didn't he?
I think it's because he was a feeble 65-year-old man. I think he was just overpowered by his wild woman.
65 is one of those ages where certain men are just decrepit, and then other guys look like they're still 40.
Well, not to mention this guy was suffering ailments, which I'll get to in a couple seconds.
Did I jump the gun?
But it's funny that you mentioned Cops, because when officers arrived, because he was calling 911 while the woman was biting him, and when officers arrived to his house, he was screaming that he'd been assaulted. She jumped off of him and jumped onto the officers, started fighting with them, and bit them too.
Oh, she was... See, I was wondering if she'd, cleaned herself up, and then the officers came over, and she was like, what seems to be the problem, officer?
It sounds like... Her husband's got all these like bite marks all over his
Her
body.
hair is all sprayed. She's got those like 45-year-old woman pants on. She just comes to the door.
But dude, this is a total episode of Cops. I mean, the guy's screaming he's been assaulted. She jumps up and starts fighting with the officers and trying to bite them too.
She went feral.
Yeah, I know. I guess he had just been released from a hospital several days before the attack. He suffered from diabetes, heart and circulation problems, and like myriad other health issues.
That'll be me when I'm 65.
And so while those ailments probably weakened his system, they say that's not what killed him. What killed him are infections that came from the direct result from being bitten.
Did she have like some nasty pyorrhea mouth or what?
Dude, you should see this woman's teeth. She's smiling in this mugshot picture, and it's just like she has these green, like horse-looking teeth, these equine-like teeth. These, ugh.
You should have seen it coming. Is that what you're saying?
Well, you know, I don't know. It's just like if I was that guy. Well, first of all, if I was that guy, I wouldn't have married this insane, woman 20 years younger than me. He's feeble. He should be lying in bed.
Yeah, but they probably got married a while ago.
You know what? I bet you if he had Viagra, this all would have been prevented.
He wouldn't have had to deny the beast her treats.
No. That's why you should have just bought her a vibrator and been like, shut up. I'm going to bed.
Yeah.
Watching Matlock.
Yeah.
But anyway, she was booked the night of the attack on charges of elder abuse, domestic violence, and assault on a police officer. And she was being held for a $50,000 bail. But now she's being charged with homicide because he died.
If he would have died from like a heart attack, would it still be murder? Or manslaughter?
Probably not. She probably would have just been charged with like elder abuse or domestic violence. But since the fact that that he died because of a result of the infection from the wounds, I bet you his system just couldn't take it.
I got a question about elder abuse, and you probably don't know, but maybe somebody could email it in. So you know how they have like statutory rape? Like you didn't really rape the girl, but she's just too young.
Yeah, a woman that's under 18.
So if you're old and you abuse another old person, is that elder abuse, or is there,
or is that just assault?
What if his wife was also 65 and she bit the hell out of him? Would that be elder abuse, or is it like statutory rape where like, well,
did she have dentures?
That would probably come into the equation somehow.
Because it would make it difficult for him to bite her, for her to bite him to death with dentures.
Well, maybe she uses Polygrip.
Oh, yeah, then it might work. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder, do you think that would be an elder abuse case? It probably would be, because it's another old person that's being abused.
Yeah, but if you're old, you're just tangling with some other person.
So you're just thinking that it should be like pro wrestling, with like octogenarian pro wrestling?
I would pay for that on pay-per-view, but
I kind of feel it would be sort of boring. But I mean, maybe you could put like razor blades on the walkers or something. So they just, or canes with like swords.
In the left corner, in the blue depends, Granny Smith.
And in the right corner, completely incontinent, Fred Sanford. Well, anyways, in summation, I guess Sergeant Carter said that he's seen cases where dogs have bitten kids and blood loss or infection led to death, but he's never heard of anyone being bitten to death before that was human. And I was thinking he's probably never worked in Detroit before. Because this type of stuff happens in Detroit.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Well, anyways, moving into my second article, which is related, I'm just going to kind of breeze through this here. This happened in the UK, and this happened last week. A prostitute who bit her client's penis so hard he required an operation has denied grievous bodily harm with intent. So she's being tried for it, and she denied that it was grievous bodily harm.
What is she saying? He asked for it?
Well, she said that she was being raped, and it was the only thing she could do to protect herself. But let me give you some background on the story. I guess prosecutor Matthew McNiff told the jury that Louise Jowett, such a good English prostitute name.
Yes.
Louise Jowett carried out the attack because Brett O'Leary from Clare, which is outside of London, told her he had no more money to give her after already paying her for sex. So he already paid her for the sex act, but he didn't have any more money to give her.
She's a grifter.
She's a grifter. And then that's why she started biting him. But I guess she was 22 years old. And I can't, they don't say how old the John was. But she's 22 years old, and she bit and continued to bite Mr. O'Leary, he's probably because he was Irish, for up to 45 seconds during the assault. So she was chomping down on his member for 45 seconds.
The bit.
Well, what happened is September 3rd of last year, Mr. O'Leary was in the area of prostitute crime-ridden area of London, cruising for a prostitute. He pulled up on the curb near Jowett, and she approached the car saying, "Hello, stranger." And I guess the jury was told that she knew him previously. So they had previously, engaged in illicit activities.
So calling him a stranger was a ruse.
Yeah, I think it was kind of like tongue-in-cheek. She's like, "Oh, hello, stranger. It's good to see you again."
Did she bite her tongue also?
Did she bite his tongue?
Sorry.
When negotiations were complete, she agreed to travel with him to his home 60 miles away. So they made negotiations. And then she was like, "Okay, I'll drive with you 60 miles outside of London.
60 miles?
House." Yeah. Which means that he probably paid her a large sum of money because she was like, "I'll drive with you on condition that I'm paid up front."
He drove her 60 miles just to get a blowjob?
Well, who knows?
I mean, another thing I've learned from cops, just get it in the car and get it over with.
Yeah, but he probably wanted to have sex with her. He probably had already had sex with her in the past.
All right, this was a preliminary, too.
Yeah, and she said, "Pay me up front and let's go." So anyways, she used some of the money that he paid her up front to purchase drugs via telephone call while on the way, while driving the 60 miles. They arrived at his house around 2 a.m. By this time, the prostitute had taken the drugs. They shared a bottle of champagne before having sex, which leads me to believe that he treats his women right. Doesn't he?
His prosties.
I treat my ladies right.
His prosties.
Dude,
he drives them 60 miles.
He drives her 60 miles, gives her all this money, lets her buy drugs, and gives her champagne before they have sex. And it was alleged that afterwards she asked Mr. O'Leary for more cash. So once they got to the house, they drank champagne. She started asking for more cash, becoming more and more aggressive as her requests continued. Now, at this point, I think I would have apprehensions about putting my dick in her mouth. If she's sitting here bargaining commands and becoming aggressively asking me for money.
Right.
I don't think I'd be like, "Well, let me put my dick in your mouth anyways."
Right.
While performing a sex act on Mr. O'Leary.
It's a very vulnerable position.
Well, listen to this. While performing a sex act on Mr. O'Leary, so she must have been asking for cash while his dick was in her mouth. He told her,
"Can you give me more money?"
Well, at this point, he told her, "I don't have any more money. Sorry."
Maybe just like, "What? I can't understand you."
She then took his penis in her mouth, gripped it between her teeth, and quote-unquote, this is what Mr. O'Leary said, "She bit hard. She bit very hard. She caused me indescribable pain." Does that just make you cringe?
But she didn't bite it off, huh? They don't say they had to sew it back on.
No, she just bit really hard. The jury then heard that Mr. O'Leary tried to pry open Jowett's mouth with his hands while she made sounds like an animal.
Like she's some kind of an anaconda or something, or some like python.
I just picture like a growling pit bull or something with with his dick in her mouth. But it was funny because so he's trying to pry her mouth open, and it made me picture that scene in Evil Dead 2 when Bruce Campbell's girlfriend's head was on his hand. Remember that? And he's smacking her head against the walls. Finally, he puts it in a vice and pulls his hand out.
If you only would have had a vice around, you might have been better off.
Well, I mean, she still kept... So this guy's trying to pry her mouth open, and she still kept his dick in there for 45 seconds. So if you had been in this situation, would you have just been smashing this bitch in the face?
No, I wouldn't have, actually.
What would you have done?
Because she's got your dick between her teeth, and if you smash her in the face, it's her head jerks back.
How do you get her? How do you get your dick out? How do you extract the penis here?
I would be trying to give her the old cauliflower ear maneuver. Where you take both your palms and you slam both her ears together as hard as you can, because then you're not going to get any reverse jerking motion while her teeth are still.
Yeah, but you probably want the jerking motion because the finish.
So your point is that he still had a boner?
What was left of the mangled boner? Actually, I probably would have lost.
Oh, I still want to come, but I wish he'd stop biting my dick.
Dude, this is like total coitus interruptus. I don't think I would have been able to... I guess he was pleading with her and begging her to let go while hitting her to try to get her off. But, he kept her in there about 45 seconds. He then said there was a lot of blood while Mr. O'Leary was screaming, and then grabbed the phone and dialed 999, which I guess is England's 911.
Or maybe just fucked up because he was in so much pain.
And she's growling at him.
The cops came regardless, right?
Yeah, the cops ended up coming and arresting her. And I guess during the trial, the jury heard that when interviewed by police, the prostitute told them that she had never met Mr. O'Leary before, and she had acted to protect herself. She claimed he had raped her and forced her to perform a sex act on him, and the only thing she could do was to bite him. Which it sounds plausible.
Yeah,
doesn't
who
it?
knows? Who's telling the truth?
You know, I wonder. I think I'm going to side with Mr. O'Leary here because, you know, he did put his dick in her mouth.
I've heard of rapists doing that before. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Don't you think that's like the most senseless thing to do
Yeah,
if you're a rapist?
but I've heard of rapists doing that before. It doesn't make sense to me either. I think maybe they just trust in the average human's unwillingness to harm another person, which maybe this guy, you know.
But I mean, you're in the most vulnerable
You are.
position.
I
there.
agree. I agree.
But then again,
I don't have an answer.
But then again, if you think about it, so this guy drove this prostitute 60 miles to his house, plied her with champagne and drugs. You know, he might have been a serial killer.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, let's say that his story is true. I think this is another one of those great sick and wrong life lessons for all our listeners out there. You know, this guy...
There's always some, like, moral lesson here.
Driving the prostitute 60 miles, giving her champagne, treating her right. Don't treat a prostitute like that because they're going to you give them an inch and they're going to try and take a yard and they're going to try and take a mile.
And get more cash out of you.
Give the hoe the pimp hand. You just got to have the pimp hand and be like, bitch, suck my dick in the car and get the fuck out.
Take it from Lance Wackerly, expert on prostitutes. At least dead ones.
All right, what do you think that one gets?
Well, anyways, I'm just going to say on the sick and wrong scale for both the stories about biting men here, I'm going to have to give it pretty high. I'm going to have to give it like probably, I mean, I guess his penis wasn't bitten off, but a man did die from a woman's bites.
Yeah, well, you're combining stories, but okay. So we're giving these a combined score?
A combined score, I'm thinking of about 7.5.
I'm going to say, I think earlier on we said if one of us pukes, that automatically makes the other person the champion of that show. I'm not going to go that far, but my balls are like shriveled up into my body right now from hearing that. So that gives it an automatic 7.
Yeah.
And I'm going to add on to that, you know, just for the other finely crafted details of the story, 1.5 points. So I'm going to give it 8.5.
Well, you gave it even higher than I did.
Well, like I said, I'm kind of
He's a true sportsman.
I'm feeling nauseous right now.
You know what it was for me? It was the fact that he's like, she bit hard, she bit very hard, indescribable pain.
But let's not forget...
My balls are like going inside of me right now.
I know. That's where you got
forming a vagina.
That's where you got the 7 from.
Yeah.
But let's not forget about the vampiric Modesto 45-year-old either. You know, that's pretty funny and disgusting.
She bit her feeble husband to death.
So 8.5 for me.
8.5. Okay.
We'll see what I can do with what I got here.
Well, I say we move on to your article.
Well, I was going to talk about narcotic agents nabbing drug smuggling puppies. I don't know if you heard that story.
No, you know, I read about that today.
This one is, but it's just too sad. It's like these South American drug dealers.
Colombian.
Well, what's that, Central America?
South America.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you got to specify Colombia because we're not saying people in Chile or Argentina were doing this.
Okay, should I start?
Not that they wouldn't.
Should I start calling you Mr. Geography from now on, or?
I'm just saying. Let's give some specifics here.
All right. Well, this isn't my story, but anyways.
Lay blame where blame is due.
These guys, they sewed it's like 3 pound
heroin.
3 pound bags of heroin into these puppies' stomachs. They cut them open and then sewed it in. They didn't like jam it down their throat.
No, they cut the dogs open.
Jamming
it
down their throat would be bad enough, but yeah, they actually sewed it in, and they also used these weren't like alley mutts. These are like purebred Labrador Retriever puppies. Yeah. I guess because they're cuter, and the guys figured like, well, nobody's going to suspect these cute puppies of having like tons of heroin horse in them, you know.
But did you see the picture? It's like this adorable Labrador puppy with this like 8-inch gash, 8-inch scar on its stomach.
Yeah,
like
and apparently they tried, the DEA agents tried to get the drugs out, and 3 of the puppies died in the procedure, but a couple of them
infections,
lived. Right, a couple of them lived, and anyways. But that's not my story.
But a couple of them lived, and they were going to train them to be like drug-sniffing dogs.
Right.
But God, isn't that just horrible?
I hope they, become full grown and they find the people that are responsible and the drug just tear them apart.
You know
kind of
what
like that woman Modesto.
Before we get into it, you know what I also read that they've been trying other techniques as well before the puppies, where they injected like heroin into some girl's ass.
What
you read about that?
What about kittens? What about cute little turtles?
I don't know. I mean, it's like it's limitless, the possibilities here.
But that's not the story I'm doing, because I don't know if that's sick and wrong. It's just...
It's wrong, though.
It's just, I mean, it's kind of sick. Like, it makes you disgusted with human nature.
God, dude.
But here's my real story.
Okay.
This is what I like to call a small story.
Story.
There's no, it's not a big to-do, but I still like it.
Dude, don't undermine the significance.
Well, it's a technique.
Oh, okay.
I make you let your guard down, and then I come at you with
I think you're trying to get this plea of sympathy here from the audience.
Well, now that we've totally analyzed my approach...
8.5, motherfucker.
Now that we've analyzed my approach, I'm just going to get into it. This is from Steubenville, Ohio.
It's Machiavellian, this one.
I have no idea where Steubenville, Ohio is. But
let's just say it's in a red state in the middle of the Midwest.
It is in a red state. But the headline is, man arrested over screwy ER story. Waka, waka, waka.
Screwy? They have screwy in the headline.
Yes, they do.
Screwy ER story. Only in the Midwest.
According to Bel Air Police, Gregory Wood of Huntington, Ohio.
Mr. Wood.
This is funny because this article is written in such a small town, news agency website that they just say the towns. They don't say the states or anything. They expect you just to know. So Gregory Wood of Huntington, Ohio, I guess, I don't know, showed up at Belmont Community Hospital over the weekend with a wound to his palm and told doctors he was injured while putting a swing set together.
Okay.
All right, fine. Yeah,
that could happen.
He's got some kids.
It's feasible.
Went to Target or Walmart, got a swing set. One of those dads, like, I don't have any mechanical skills.
The ratchet or the wrench slipped or
screwdriver,
something. Yeah.
It slips. It goes through his hand. But police say doctors were suspicious. So obviously this guy's like all herky-jerky and shit, and just like they're like, well, that guy's not telling the truth.
So he's like shaking. I mean, was it just in one palm?
One palm. A wound to his palm, not his palm.
How severe?
He's not trying to be Jesus Christ or anything.
Yeah, so my first instinct was stigmata.
Well, police say doctors were suspicious, and they checked with Wheeling Hospital, which must be another hospital in the community, to find out the man was in their emergency room a few days earlier with the exact same injury. Bel Air Police, the police that surround the Belmont Community Hospital, the first hospital.
Not to be confused with Bel Air and Beverly Hills.
No, this is in the middle of Ohio.
Okay.
Said that when a doctor approached Wood to ask him about the Wheeling Hospital visit, hey, we just called another hospital because you're such a weirdo that we don't trust you. And they said you were in here a week ago saying the same thing to them.
And you know what? I bet you most doctors don't put that much research into this.
No.
So this guy must have been pretty fucking weird.
Well, this is in the middle of nowhere in Ohio. They just don't get a lot of stuff, so they really pay. They really care for the patients that come in instead of it's not just like an assembly line.
Yeah.
But anyway,
plus they probably don't have as many. They wouldn't even have time to do this in Oakland.
Right. But the doctor approaches him and says, "Hey, we just called this other hospital. They said you were in there with the same injury last week."
What's up?
Wood ran out of the
up with that.
Wood ran out of the hospital. Gotta go.
He just got up and left the emergency room?
Yeah, as soon as he was confronted. Kavlik said Wood then showed up 45 minutes later at East Ohio Regional Hospital in Martins Ferry, where he gave doctors the same story. Kavlik's the police chief, said doctors in Martins Ferry were equally suspicious, so he hasn't improved his lying.
So this is the third hospital in like 3 days.
Yeah. No, that's actually the same day, 45 minutes later. The first hospital was like a week earlier.
A week earlier, yeah. Okay, and this is the same day he hit 2.
So 45 minutes later, he gets to this other hospital. They equally don't believe his story. The guy's just a horrible liar, or just, he just has liar written all over his face. And they also call police. The cops finally got to that hospital before the guy had a chance to run away. And they sort of scuffled with him and arrested him. Apparently, this was all just about, like, getting some Vicodin.
Wait, this whole thing was a ploy to get Vicodin?
Yeah. So the guy put a screw through his hand just to go get some, like, to get a buzz on. Like, just go buy a bottle of Jack and just drink the whole thing.
Go buy some damn Robitussin.
Right.
I mean, seriously, are they that hard up in Ohio?
This guy, you know what it is?
So this guy put a screw or a screwdriver?
This guy obviously never went to college. College does 2 things. it prepares you for, the better jobs out there later in your life. But you also get a thorough working knowledge of all the drugs you can do. You don't have to go to great lengths to get a buzz on. There's so many options out there.
And not to mention, if the guy was college educated, I highly doubt I think he'd have other things to do than to stick a screwdriver through his hand in an attempt to get Vicodin.
But like you said, you immediately said, just go buy some Robitussin. That's because you're in college and you figure that out, that Robitussin can give you a buzz.
A similar effect. Yeah,
Right.
Exactly. So what happened to this guy? What was the outcome here?
The doctors at Belmont Community Hospital says, sorry, that's not it. Woods is now facing charges of deception and to obtain a dangerous drug. But let me say something else about this story. So we're gonna have these articles, every week, and I'm starting to notice similarities in the articles. So this is kind of a trope among Sick and Wrong articles, and it's one of my favorite tropes in these articles. This is
the stupidity trope?
No. The way the article's written. There's a specific way you write an article like this. So here's the last quote. Doctors at Belmont Community Hospital said it is common for addicts or drug dealers to harm themselves to get painkillers. Quote, they'll often pull their own teeth out or break some minor bones just to get the narcotics, said Dr. Jerry Dagg. There are certain people who make rounds. They'll travel. They'll go from the south up the interstate and stop at every hospital they see. So this is the trope, is that there's an article about some really fucked up guy doing some fucked up shit, and then they have the expert say, oh, this happens all the time.
This happens all the time, yeah. I know, and this almost happens in every article. There's an expert saying, yeah, that's not uncommon.
That's just one, it's a common theme among these articles.
I bet you every week we could probably find an article of some inbred redneck jamming some foreign object into his skin in an effort to get Vicodin.
Right, but I'd never seen it before. And it almost took the wind out of my sails because, I think I found this really cool article about this guy doing it, but then the guy says, oh, it happens all the time. So I'm thinking, well, is this really sick and wrong then? Or that sort of defies it. But then I'm like, I go back and I read it, I'm like, it's totally sick and wrong. This guy put a screw through his palm to get some
You shouldn't even be deciding whether or not that's sick and wrong. But what I don't understand is, are there no other drugs in that area of Ohio? Were his options just so, limited that he had to, the only way I'm going to get high tonight is if I jam the screwdriver through my hand and go get some Vicodin at the hospital?
I haven't taken a lot of, these type of painkillers.
Vicodin's not that cool. It's definitely not worth a screwdriver in the hand.
A painkiller, I know it's sort of different, but isn't a painkiller sort of similar to just getting really, really trashed on, whiskey or something?
No, because a painkiller could be like an opiate.
All right.
And so I think, I might be wrong here, but Vicodin, I think, is probably an opiate, not a barbiturate. But regardless, a barbiturate would have the same effect as getting drunk.
Get his rocks off.
Robitussin. He could have, drank 3 bottles of Robitussin and would have saved the screw in his hand. But
or just go to the seediest area of town and just buy some fucking heroin,
Exactly. What leads me to believe that this guy obviously wasn't college educated, probably not too intelligent, and I bet you this guy doesn't have a girlfriend. Because if he had a girlfriend, his girlfriend probably would have slapped him and been like, what the hell is wrong with you?
Or she would have been out in the car, put that screw through your hand because I want some Vicodin, and she would have been arrested too.
Oh, because she would have done the screwing.
She would have, has him by the balls and just, he's the guy. Kind of like, never mind.
Were you about to say something personal?
I was.
Okay.
Certain boyfriends
ex-girlfriends of mine.
Certain boyfriends are at the mercy of their girlfriend's every whim, and
none of my ex-girlfriends had ever put a screw in my hand in an effort to get drugs.
All I'm saying is it's just a matter of degree, not of whether that type of behavior was going on.
Yeah, whether or not it was going on. But I can honestly say that I've never done that before. But no, seriously, there's something just awry about that, and I kind of disagree. I'm kind of stepping out of my own professional, knowledge here, that I'm willing to disagree with that expert that says that doesn't happen that often in California.
Well, California's just crawling with meth also.
Oh, yeah, and I bet you they don't even
have to
pull
outside and people just throw it in my face.
And a lot of, actually, if you think about that, that's a good point. A lot of the junkies out in the Tenderloin and throughout, Fresno and Modesto, apparently, probably don't have to pull very hard to get the teeth out.
They should just pick them up off the ground next to them.
They just ask Jethro to punch them in the face, and they just fall out.
But speaking of that, would you, if it was let's say you couldn't get any drugs and you were going to do this, you're going to pull out a tooth of your own or put a screw through your hand or just go beat up a homeless guy and take his drugs. Which would you do?
I'd probably huff spray paint.
Well, that's the third option.
Yeah.
Right.
I
See,
mean,
there's all
and
kinds
if
of
you
stuff.
think about that, I don't think this guy had that many more brain cells to lose.
Right. Well, anyways. What do you? I'm gonna give it. I wish there was more detail. I wish they talked about
I wish
how
there
big
was,
the screw was, and if it was all the way through.
I wish
his
there was more
hand.
gore. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is this article is definitely wrong, and it's pretty sick, but it ranks low on the sick scale because there's not that much gore.
No, there could be. They
There
just
should
they
be.
chose not to detail
And
it.
you know, this guy has probably done other things in the past that they could have mentioned.
But the fact that
Like that time he stuck the wrench in his genitals, pulled a ball out of his sack.
But the fact that he went to all these different hospitals and one of them was a week prior.
Gotta give him points for that.
Was it the same screw through his hand? Or does he reinsert it every time?
I wonder what the hell his hand looks like.
Like a mangled piece of meat.
Just his garbled mass like Jesus' hand.
Anyways, I get a 6.9.
I'm going to have to go with a 6. Maybe a 5.7.
Douchebag.
I'm giving it a 5.7 because it's wrong, but it's just not sick enough.
You're a fucking knucklehead.
He didn't get his dick bitten off.
Look, I scored myself lower.
Indescribable pain.
I scored myself lower than you. How about a mercy point or two?
All right, just the fact that he went to a second hospital in that day.
Third. Oh, in the day.
In that day, 2 hospitals in one day. On the stupidity scale and the desperation scale, I'm bumping it up to a 6.7.
Douche.
6.7.
All right.
That's all you're going to get from me.
All right, what now?
Well,
you got an
anyways,
email or something?
I think people should email us and decide which one article you think is the most foul. Sick and Wrong Podcast at hotmail.com. Prostitute chomping on her client's cock. Man getting bitten to death by his wife. Or guy shoving screwdriver through his hand. Personally, I think I won. And I don't know if you're going to concede. But let's leave it up to the listening audience to decide who gets the case of beer this week.
I would love to do that.
Sick and Wrong Podcast at hotmail.com.
Well, I think we're out of time.
Yeah, I guess that's about it. You can hear the music. Gotta love this song. But anyway, stay tuned for next week. It's going to be podcast number 6. And soon to be, check for our podcast on iTunes. Unless they decide not to host it.
Why would they do that?
You know, I have no idea. I've heard that they're averse to people talking about bestiality and
various
and
other
such.
topics.
Yeah, and such. But hey, you know what? I think iTunes needs to expand their mind and quit. And Steve Jobs, I think that guy's an autocratic Nazi. But anyways, stay tuned. It's going to be on iTunes, hopefully very soon. And just keep sending us an email. And that's about it for tonight. So thank you. Good night.
night.